This NFL Week 7 Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
For the touchdown. And taking a shot to ground downfield. He makes the catch, and he gets in for the touchdown. The catch is made by Calvin Ridley. Wilson, as he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Ridley.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Here to get into our Week 7 player props for the Sunday games. We'll go through our player props, of course, touchdown scorers, honorable mentions, and then we'll wrap it up with best bets for this Sunday schedule for our player props. But joining me here to help me break everything down for Week 7 for our player props, I got my guy here with me. It's ChrisBeCappinn. Chris, what's going on, my man?
What's up? Beautiful Friday. We're right around that time of the year where you mentioned it. All the sports are going on. I think NHL is back. Like we got WNBA with either one or two more games left. NFL in the thick of things as we transition into Week 7. NBA starts next week. It's a beautiful time. It's a beautiful. The leaves are falling. The air feels crisp. It's a beautiful time of the year, man. So I'm excited to jump into the podcast with you and hopefully give out some winners for Week 7 in the NFL here.
Yeah, man, it's like we mentioned, it's getting that time where it's going to be busy with all the sports going on, but we love the grind, and I think that with like you mentioned, the weather changing, cooler temperatures, I think you're along the same lines as me, that when it gets dark outside, the lights are off at the house, that's probably the best time to put our heads down and get to work. Just because there's not you could hear the crickets outside, and that's that's where you can get the best work done, honestly. Handicapping games and then trying to find winners for our loyal listeners. Let's start with Thursday Night Football. Chris, kind of went as we expected. I think we talked about a lot of the injuries for the New Orleans Saints being on a short week, and Sean Payton and company coming in there, led by Bo Nix and the offense, and they just came out and took care of business. Honestly, in that first half, they led by 16-3 at the half. Went on to win the game 33-10. A little meaningful and unmeaningful touchdown there at the end by the New Orleans Saints, depending on what side you were on the total there. Did obviously push it over the total there of 37.5. The game ends up with 43 points, but I mean, no sweat really, honestly, with the side there with the Denver Broncos. I think I saw this number get as high as, like, I want to say 3.5 for this game here. As far as the props went, I ended up going 1-2. I had the Javonte Williams over on his receiving yards of 17.5. That one got to the window. I also was anticipating Bo Nix to throw an interception, but he had a clean game, 16 of 26. 164 yards, didn't throw a touchdown, didn't throw an interception either as well. And I'll be honest, Chris, I didn't watch the game, and then I had to go back this morning and take a look. That did my guy Courtland Sutton even play a snap yesterday for the Denver Broncos. He played 86% of the snaps yesterday, 0 targets, and no receptions, no nothing for Courtland Sutton last night. So that one hurt a little bit. We talked about our touchdown scores, or our touchdown scores, and I want to say there was if I'm not mistaken, a fumble for a touchdown. I'll have to go back and look that up. But how does your props turn out for you? Yeah, fumble touchdown for the Saints there. For the Broncos here. So we talked about defensive special teams touchdown. That one got to the window, a nice plus 450 price. But how did your props end up going?
Yeah, the props were good. I went 2-1. Best bet was a no sweat winner. Alvin Kamara under 71.5 rushing yards. Yep. I don't know where it closed there, but I saw it get all the way down to 68.5. So sharp money, I think, came in on the under. I think he had like 3 carries for 1 yard at halftime. And I mentioned,
it was
the
bad.
hand injury, all those things. So that was the one that I really enjoyed the most, and I gave it as the best bet. So that was a winner. Bud Means over his 33.5 receiving yards was also a winner.
Yep.
He finished, I think, with 37. I did watch some of the game, but when that lead grew to 17-3, 24-3, something like that, I said, yeah, the Broncos defense is not giving up that many points. So I kind of flipped it over to the other channel, but I was going back and forth, kind of flipping back and forth between MLB last night, trying to watch a little preseason NBA. So there's a lot going on last night, but the one that didn't get there for me was also chasing the interception problem, other side, right? Spencer Rattler threw the ball a million times and still never threw a pick, 35 times last night, but never threw a pick. And that's what I was hoping for. They did get some pressure on him as well, ended up taking 6 sacks, but just never threw that pick. So that was the one loser. The touchdown props didn't go as well because I thought Sutton would get in the end zone. I thought Alvin Kamara would get in the end zone. Neither one of those guys did. And then Spencer Rattler also didn't get into the end zone either. So those didn't do as well this week, but best bet was a winner, and we'll take it and try to move forward, be a little bit more productive here for Sunday.
Yeah, let's turn the page here to Sunday before we get to the Sunday player props here. The NBA season, like we mentioned, it tips off October 22nd. And the NBA Gambling Podcast, we're hosting a win total contest. Winner gets a $250 SGPN gift card. Head to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA contest to enter today before the season starts. Again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA contest. As always, I want to take a moment to thank our loyal listeners and our fans here on the Propcast. And you can just do us a favor. Head over to Spotify, give us a 5-star rating. Only you can prevent corporate gambling from taking over. All right, Chris, let's get into our player props here for NFL Week 7 Sunday games. I'll let you lead it off. Let's start with our quarterback props. Where are you taking us?
All right, so we are going to, let's see. I think the one I like the most, is Geno. Yeah, we'll go Geno. We'll go to Atlanta. Seattle on the road, cross country, all the way across the country. They're all the way in dirty South in Atlanta. We're going Geno up and over his 35.5 pass attempts, minus 117, so a little bit of juice on it. But this is a prop that I really, it's honestly one that I think you just don't fade until you actually feel like I don't know if it's fadeable, I guess is what I'm saying here. This is something that we've talked about before. I think you may have given it out one time or maybe mentioned it as an honorable mention. I know I have as well. And we just kind of key in on these teams that, really want to pass the football and, don't really want to run the football. And that's what we've seen from this team. Geno has 5 straight games, where he's passed the ball at least 34 times in a row. And, I'm not sure that it's going to change this week either. Seattle, you just looking at the team, they pass the ball more than any other team in the NFL. I think that exact number is 41 times per game. So yeah, Atlanta is a team that can take away the run. I'm not sure, how much they're going to want to use Kenneth Walker in this game. And with Atlanta offense kind of, finding its stride, we know Kirk Cousins slowed off, came into the season with a slow start after not participating in any of the preseason games. They've kind of hit their groove, so this to me gives me a little bit of shootout vibes, like I could definitely see that. And I think if Seattle finds success, it will be through the air. Like I said, on the season, he's averaging 41.8 pass attempts per game, so that would not surprise me at all. Atlanta's, pass defense is not necessarily the worst in the NFL, and their rush defense is also pretty middle of the pack also. But I just think Geno is going to, continue to fire it off through the air, So I like Geno up and over 35.5 pass attempts here to get it started.
Yeah, for the 6 games, he's thrown for at least 40 or more times for the Seattle Seahawks. And you take a look at what defense or quarterbacks have done against the quarterback position. They're only averaging 32 attempts per contest, but it's also the fact that how bad the Seattle Seahawks defense has been over the past 3 weeks, where they're giving up 30, close to 36 points per game. And when you're giving up that many points, you're going to be forced to throw the football. We seen it against the 49ers on Thursday Night Football last week. The Giants even went up there, got the upset victory. and I forgot who they played the prior week there, where they give against the Lions in Detroit. They had given up 42 points to them as well. In that game, he threw it 56 times, did Geno Smith. So I think I agree with you that this is one of the higher totals on the board this week. Does have shootout potential written all over it. So I do think that he can get up and over this number of his pass attempts right now. Currently sitting at 35.5 for Geno Smith. And right now the total in this game is sitting at 51 for the Seahawks and the Falcons. All right, for my quarterback prop here, I'm going to go to that game between the Lions and the Vikings. And I'm going to bank on Jared Goff to throw an interception in this game. And we start here with the Viking side, obviously coming off of the bye week. So that gives Brian Flores, 2 full weeks to prepare for this Lions offense. And in particular, Jared Goff. And you take a look at, in particular, what this defense has done against opposing quarterbacks this season. Have the Vikings through the first 5 weeks at the 5 games that they have played, they've intercepted the opposing quarterback 11 times. That's almost an average of a little over 2 per game. They've had multiple interceptions in 4 of the 5 games that they have played, and they've had at least 1 interception in every single one of the games that they have played this season, obviously against the opposing quarterback here. So this number was right now was around -120 for Jared Goff. I think this could be another game where the books are expecting this one to be a little bit of shootout as well. And we've seen what the Vikings have been able to do early in games, that they've been able to get out to leads and force the opposing quarterbacks to throw the football. And obviously, when they're throwing the football a little bit more, you have those opportunities to throw an interception. So I think Brian Flores will put together a great defensive game plan here. Maybe have Jared Goff confused a little bit out there, was disguising with some different type of blitzes and pressures. And maybe he makes an errant throw. I think that there's a more than a good chance that he does throw one here to make it 6 straight games where the Minnesota Vikings defense has intercepted the opposing quarterback. So give me Jared Goff to throw an interception here, Chris, -120 against the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, you laid this one out perfectly. I think the other thing that bodes well for, because I got a prop I like in this game too. I think the other thing that bodes well for this Minnesota defense is, they're coming off a bye, so they've had even an extra week to, prepare. And we're expecting this offense to come back down to earth just a tad bit. We know Detroit is a high-powered offense. They were one of the best offenses last year as well. But this Minnesota defense is, man, in the running for probably the best defense in the NFL. And I think that they definitely, tip ball. Minnesota does a really great job of taking away the run. So I can see Jared Goff really having to, rely a lot on his arm in this spot. And, hopefully we get I'll probably be on this one with you, hopefully we can get this one with our interception props not cashing last night.
All right, let's get over to our running back prop for this Sunday. What do you got, Chris?
So I'm looking at David Montgomery in the same game, and we literally just talked about this one. So perfect segue here. I want to go under, on his rushing yards. Number is 51.5. And
yep.
This is really contingent upon, like I said, Minnesota kind of making teams very, very one-dimensional so they can pin their ears back and really get after the quarterback. We know that's something that they've done a really good job of. And if you look at David Montgomery's numbers recently, last week, carries against the Dallas Cowboys, and he finished with 80 yards. The week before against Seattle, they didn't really need him to do too much because Jared Goff was having such a great game through the air. He finished with just 12 rushes for 40 yards in that game. And Arizona, he had 23 for 105, which everybody runs the ball, really, really well against. And the 2 weeks prior to that, the Rams, very poor run defense, 91 yards to start the season. Tampa Bay slows them down, but only 35. But you look at this Minnesota defense, and outside of, the Baltimore Ravens, this is the second best, maybe even the best run defense that we've seen. They're allowing just 67 yards per game. And we know that, when you think about this Lions offense, they have a 2-head running game, right? There's Jahmyr Gibbs there. There's David Montgomery there. But going back, before we go back to that, because I do want to talk about split counts as well, snap counts as well. This Minnesota defense, giving up 67.2 yards per game, second fewest behind Baltimore, 3.6 yards per carry, second fewest behind Baltimore. Number 1 in opponent rushing attempts per game. They're just not allowing you to gain a lot of success on first down, and they're putting you in terrible situations for second and long, third and long, so teams aren't necessarily able to even run the football. The other thing that really stands out about this Minnesota defense, is I don't know a lot of people paying attention to this from an ATS perspective. They've had the lead at the end of the first quarter and halftime in every single game. They're 4-0 or 5-0, I think it is now, against the spread in the first half. So they're playing from out front, which also forces team not to be able to pass the football, forces team to have to pass the football a little bit more as well. So I went through and I just wanted to check the snap counts to see if I wanted to fade, Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs. And, after that bye week for Detroit last week, David Montgomery got the lesser of the snap counts. 51 for Jahmyr Gibbs, 31 for David Montgomery. In the prior week, they had a bye. 2 weeks ago, it was Jahmyr Gibbs 57 and David Montgomery 40. So it looks like over the last few weeks, we've seen, a slight uptick for Jahmyr Gibbs, where at the beginning of the season, this was almost 51-49, exactly what it was. So I'll fade Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery here, and go under on his 51.5 rush yards, just thinking that Minnesota, continues to make teams one-dimensional, and this leads to, more interception opportunities for Jared Goff, which is, the player prop that you like a lot as well.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? And if you also take a look at the running backs that the Vikings have faced this season, I know week 1 it was Devin Singletary. Week 2 they went up against Jordan Mason. Yeah, they gave up 100 rushing yards to him, but Jordan Mason was playing at a whole nother level. Texans, that was a week that the first week they didn't have Joe Mixon. And then, a couple weeks ago, Josh Jacobs had 91, Emmanuel Wilson had 27. And then last week against Breece Hall and Braylon Allen combined for 36 yards on 14 carries in that game. So their rush defense has been absolutely fantastic, where they're only giving up around 57 rushing yards per game to the running back position, are the Minnesota Vikings. And when you have a two-headed monster there, with Gibbs and Montgomery, like you mentioned, I feel like Montgomery's turning more into their the red zone guy, where if they need to get that touchdown at the within the 5-yard line or at the goal line, they're handing it off to him. But yeah, I think it's going to be a game where I think that the defense, or the running game, I should say, is going to be very limited for the Detroit Lions, just because how well that Minnesota Vikings rush defense has done thus far this season. All right, before I get over to my running back prop here, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all sports: NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, WNBA, NASCAR, and much more. Boostober is upon us, which means you're getting a spooky amount of profit boost and much more. And with the NBA tipping off every NBA Pick'em entry from October 19th through October 27th will be boosted. And you can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Definitely going to have Jared Goff to throw an INT in this entry for myself for Underdog Fantasy. He'll take the higher on his interception. So sign up with promo code MACHINE to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code MACHINE. All right, Chris, let me get over to my player prop here for the running back position. I'm looking at Tony Pollard in this game to go up and over his receiving yards. This number was at, I believe it was 25.5, but this number probably went up with the official ruling out of Tajay Spears, who is dealing with a injury there. He won't be going. So it'll be the Tony Pollard show here for the Tennessee Titans. The official number now for him is it's at 23.5. I'm sorry. So 23.5 is a number right now for Tony Pollard. And it's really a fade of the Buffalo Bills, who they play this week against the running back position, where they've given up tons and tons of yard through the air to that running back position. So on the season, they're giving up 61 receiving yards to that running back position. And kind of just going through the numbers, James Conner had 33, Mario DiMarcado had 26, Devon Achane, 7 receptions, 69. The only week that a running back did not get over their receiving yards against the Bills was the week 3 matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where Travis Etienne had 17 We saw what Justice Hill was able to do when we talked about that. He had 6 receptions, 78 yards. And then my guy, Daria Gumbawale, 57 receiving yards. And then Brees Hall last week had 56 against this Buffalo Bills team. So, with Tony Pollard, that's going to get most of the snaps there. Won't be surprised if he's up there about 80 to 85% of the snap count percentage for this team. But I do believe that he's going to be involved in that offense. If it is Will Levis that is going to get the start here for the Tennessee Titans, screen passes, dump down, check downs, whatever the case might be. And I think Will Levis also knows that he has to limit the mistakes that he's made over the first 4 to 5 weeks here for the Tennessee Titans. Because if he maybe didn't make some of those stupid mistakes, we'd be talking about a different record here for the Tennessee Titans here. But I do think that Tony Pollard can have a lot of success here against this Bills team here as well, like the other running backs have had over the first 5 to 6 weeks here. And just kind of looking at Tony Pollard's numbers through the passing game. I know it really hasn't been there for him over the course of the season. He had a one game earlier this season where he did have 40 receiving yards against the New York Jets. So I do think we may see an increase in targets going to him in this game here. So I do like him to get up and over the receiving yards number here of 23.5 here, Chris.
Yeah, you laid this one out perfectly, man. I feel like the first 3 weeks, I think it was about the first 3 weeks, it was kind of difficult to find a discrepancy, something that we didn't like about Buffalo Bills. And now it feels like, we've kind of located the weak point of this team, and that is targeting running backs, and specifically with their receiving yards over them. So you gave out the numbers. I think they make a ton of sense here. And also just the increased workload, like you said, with Tyjae Spears being already ruled out. Is he on your fantasy team? I feel like he's on your fantasy team.
Tyjae Spears?
Yeah, is he on your fantasy team?
He might be on one of my teams, but he's probably sitting on the bench. Knowing my luck, because my entire team has been injured.
Yeah. I feel like he was on your team last week when we matched up, and we didn't get a chance to talk about that off air. But 1 point win, I'll take that too. But yeah, the play makes a ton of sense. I'm probably going to end up telling you on this one as well.
Yeah, you're right. I do have him on my bench there now. Tyjae Spears. Boy, that's a league I'm 0-6 in, man. My team has just been decimated by injuries. It's been bad. I had one team, Chris. We're going to kind of get off on a tangent here. I had Tua as a quarterback. I have Malik Neighbors, but I don't know Malik Neighbors is coming back. Jonathan Taylor at the running back position. And there was another receiver in there that was missing some time. I forgot who it was. I'll try to pull it up in the meantime, but it just has not been pretty. I mean, even it's a family league, and my cousin's like, boy, your whole team has just been decimated by injuries. It's just been so bad. All right, so that is our running back props here for NFL Week 7. Let's get over to our wide receiver props here, Chris, or player prop number 3. Where are you taking us?
We are going to let's go to Philly. The Philadelphia Eagles will be taking on the division rival New York Giants this week at MetLife. And this is the simple one. AJ Brown, longest reception, over 24 and a half yards here. I absolutely love it. And this is more of a target play too, right? This kind of feels like a system play as well, but you got to ride these systems until they fail you. I think the Geno Smith one, over on his pass attempts is another system play. But I'm always trying to target wide receivers against this New York Giants defense. And it's not that it's necessarily a poor defense. They just always give up a big play. And that's been the trend of the season here. Last week we cashed on who was it? I got it written down right here. I'm tripping for looking that far. Last week it was Jamar Chase. We talked about that on Monday Night Football, right? I gave out Jamar Chase over on his longest reception. That was a winner. He had a 33-yard reception. T. Higgins also had a 24-yard reception as well. You go back a couple weeks ago, they played the Seattle Seahawks. It was Tyler Lockett, 33-yarder. 3 weeks ago, CeeDee Lamb, 55-yarder. 4 weeks ago, Mari Cooper, 24 yards, and that was from a wash, Deshaun Watson. Noah Brown, even when they played against the Commanders, 34-yard reception in week 2. Austin Eckler also had a 27-yard reception. in that game against the New York Giants. And then week 1, they actually got Justin Jefferson, who lit him up for a 44-yard bomb as well.
Yep.
So they just continue to give up the big play. AJ Brown's only played 2 weeks. Last week he got the Browns defense. He had a 40-yard reception. And in week 1, when they played against the Giants where were they at? In London, or what was that game?
The
at?
Giants last week?
Well, when the Packers played against the Eagles in week 1, they were in
Brazil.
Brazil, 67-yarder. So he's only played 2 weeks. He's had a reception of longer than 24 and a half yards in both games, with a 40 and a 67-yarder. It makes sense. The numbers match it as well. And I think you just continue to look for him deep. If he's a guy that takes the top off the defense, and I like him because of his matchup in this week. And honestly, I've probably been looking at this prop even if he didn't have such a good matchup. But I'll take AJ Brown, longest reception, up and over 24 and a half here. Minus 110 over on ESPN Bet.
Yeah, I couldn't talk you off. I mean, we know the strength of the Giants defense has been that front seven, right? The defensive line, who I believe right now is leading the league in sacks, and I think that's what it's left them a little bit vulnerable in the back half of their defense here. But now I don't know if there's some kind of disconnect with this Eagles team because we were just so used to them just flying down the field and just scoring points at will. I know they've had a lot of turnover at the coordinator position. Maybe that has something to do with it as well. But I just feel like that there's something that I don't know. There's rumors that there's some type of disconnect between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, and we've seen the antics about him and him last week screaming at the home fans and then coming out this week and shaving his head. I mean, it's just a circus there for the Eagles there. But, I think also with those two guys that were missing, in particular, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, with their respective injuries, I think that maybe they find a little bit of a flow here do the Eagles offense. And I think that there's definitely the possibility of here AJ Brown. And like you mentioned, you laid it out here perfectly with the over on the receptions. Longest reception for AJ Brown here. So couldn't talk you off that. Oh, yep. AJ Brown, another guy that's on my one of my fantasy teams now, but at least he's back or came back last week for me. So hopefully he does have a big week here, Chris. All right, for my third player prop here, there's a couple I liked. I'll save one for the honorable mentions. I talked a lot about fading the slot wide receivers. I'm going back to that Lions game and the Vikings game, right? Where the Lions have just not been very good against the slot wide receivers. And I'm looking at Jordan Addison to go over on his receiving yards. Number was at 51.5. It's up to 52.5 consensus now. And I think obviously a lot of the attention will go to Justin Jefferson, right? His number right now is set at 93.5. But I think that is an opportunity where that the Lions defense will be, I don't say double teaming, but you're going to shade that safety over to Justin Jefferson's side. Really not let him get off in this game or go off for 100 plus, receiving yards, 144 receiving yards. I think he had last season, I should say, against his Lions team, which I think that opens up the opportunity for Jordan Addison. I know he missed the early part of the season there with an injury, but he's back in here. I think it's an opportunity, right? Coming off of the bye week here, going up against his Lions defense that I think is still a little bit vulnerable in the secondary there. I know, with the loss of Aiden Hutchinson, there's rumors that they may want to go out and get Max Crosby to take his spot here and have him there for the foreseeable future with Aiden Hutchinson there. Marcus Davenport, who was supposed to be on the other side for this Lions defense, he's also dealing with an injury as well. So your pass rush guys are going to be a little bit compromised in this game, not being out there for this Lions front seven. So I think that leaves some vulnerability that gives Sam Darnold some time there to get to the ball to his receivers. But I think this might be the Jordan Addison game here. I'll keep on fading this trend that I've found, just betting on the over receiving yards for the slot wide receivers. I'm not going to regurgitate all the numbers there because if people have been listening to our show, they know that I've been talking about this. So I'm just going to go right back to it. Jordan Addison over 52.5 receiving yards here, Chris.
Yeah, and I'm not going to regurgitate how much I like it. You keep giving it out and it keeps cashing, and I don't think it's the time for us to fade it now. So I like it. I like it a lot.
All right, so that's 3 player props each there. Before we get over to honorable mentions, let me tell everyone about our proud partner, Rhythm. Hey, look, Rhythm's proud partner, or SGPN's proud partner, I should say, Rhythm. We're all partners together. It's the number one AI-powered back sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money line, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or press build a model for me. And Rhythm gives you predictions for every game and player prop, and also has a myriad of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. So claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And we're also brought to you by BetUS. Bet with the best in the business, BetUS. BetUS has been around for more than 30 years. Easily deposit cryptocurrency and get lightning fast payouts. US players are always welcome. Sign up and deposit $100 and you have a chance to win a 1960 Ford Mustang. Use our link to sign up and get a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. Promo code SGPN so they know that we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sports book. All right, Chris, let's get into honorable mentions here, my man. Something that you were looking at, a couple things you were looking at, trying to get to the window with, so we can talk out. Anything that stuck out to you?
Yeah, just a couple here, I'm just trying to get an updated injury report. I don't see the numbers that I'm looking for. I don't see available yet. So I guess that's the perfect segue to an honorable mention. And the first one here, is your guy. I saw you pick him up on the waiver wire, Tyrone Tracy Jr.
Yeah.
This dude has been absolute money recently, and I'm still, not a big believer in this Philadelphia, rush defense. I think the way that New York is playing right now, they're gonna run the ball no matter what. Like they just look like they want to run the football, and you can put some numbers behind that as well. This is a team that is trying their best to not put it all on Daniel Jones, hands, but I don't see a number for him. I know he had that awkward, landing, that knee kind of bent backwards, and they were saying this is the quickest recovery from a, almost serious injury that we've seen. But I saw his touchdown prop available, but I don't see his rushing prop. And I know he's just coming off, some stellar performances here, and I kind of wanted to continue to buy on him. Just thinking that the books may have not caught up to, where his line is. 18 carries 2 weeks ago against Seattle, pretty poor defense, but 129 yards. And then he followed that up with 17 carries for only 50 yards. But the thing for me, when you got Singletary still listed as probable, listed as, I think he had a limited practice today and yesterday. So not sure what the status of him is going to be. But I just think, I like the way that this kid's running the football. I like his vision. And, they kind of utilizing him a lot, so I wanted to play on him. The other one was Austin Eckler. This is something that's continued to cash as well. Don't see the number available. Probably be 21, 22 and a half is what I'm thinking. It's something that I actually ended up playing last week after we did the show, just doing a little bit more deep diving. Mm-hmm. Austin Eckler he's over on his receiving prop in every single game so far. And Brian Robinson Jr. is a running back who missed last week because he was dealing with the concussion. No, I'm sorry, dealing with a knee issue. Yeah. And he's been limited in practice the last 2 days. He's limited yesterday, limited today. Even if he plays, it doesn't really matter because Austin Eckler is more of a third down back who catches a lot of those passes out of the backfield from Jaden Daniels, of course. So when that number becomes available, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be, this was something that catch in the first quarter last week against Baltimore. And, I'm watching my team. So I'm watching the script and the plays. Austin Eckler seems to be a favorite of Jaden Daniels, kind of taking those checkdowns out of the backfield and getting upfield. He's still, even at his age, his older age now, he's still pretty elusive and he can break tackles and, hit you with a couple shift moves and pick up some yards. So I'll be looking at those two. Those were the two that kind of jumped out to me. Like I said, either of the numbers are available here, but those were what I kind of liked the most. What about yourself?
Yeah, I was looking for Deshaun Watson's pass attempts to go over in this game against the Cincinnati Bengals. That number just hasn't posted yet for whatever reason. But I mean, you take a look at what quarterbacks have been able to do against the Bengals defense, and we've talked about it at volumes how bad that defense has been for this Bengals team. But just over the last 3 weeks, Chris, Andy Dalton 40 pass attempts, Lamar Jackson 42, and the last week Daniel Jones 41. I know they get Nick Chubb back this week in some type of capacity. I know Jerome Ford is out for this game here as well. So we'll see how much they really get out of Nick Chubb. I know that the coaches mentioned that they want to kind of ease him in, obviously coming off that the knee injury that he suffered last week. I think it's been now 13 months since he's been out of game action in the NFL, but his first week being back. But again, I think you and I mentioned this. I think we're talking about it offline that again, there's an opportunity for Deshaun Watson to go out there and have a pretty good game against his past defense of the Cincinnati Bengals. So that was one I was looking at. Did get to the window with George Kittle over on his receiving yards for this game against the Chiefs. Chiefs defense against the tight end, I think, is it's the one position where they're allowing the most receiving yards. And I know it started early in the season against Isaiah Likely, who had 111 receiving yards. The Bengals collectively, those three guys had 151, but even Kyle Pitts got over his number of 59. Will Dissly again for the Chargers, he got up and over his number of 24. And then last week, Jawan Johnson had 31. So George Kittle has developed that type of chemistry and rapport with Brock Purdy. And I believe that I did see Juwan Jennings was on the injury report for the San Francisco 49ers. But just kind of take a look over the past several weeks of what George Kittle's been doing for this offense. He had 76 against the Vikings, 45 for the against the Patriots, 64 against the Arizona Cardinals. Last week, he did get up and over his number of on his receiving yards. I do remember playing this. And we talked about George Kittle a lot, but that number was at 58. I think the number this week was set at 51 and a half. It's off the board at the moment for whatever reason. But those were the two I was looking at here for this week. I think that was pretty much it. Drake May. Drake May to go over on his passing yards. I mean, Jaguars defense, I mean, it speaks for itself how bad it's been. And we saw some good things of Drake May last week against the Texans, right? I know that was a difficult task for him to go up against that type of defense. But I mean, you just take a look. 3 of the 6 quarterbacks that the Jaguars have faced have thrown for 300 plus yards, 266 for Josh Allen. And then last week, Caleb Williams had 226 passing yards with 4 touchdowns. They've allowed at least 2 passing touchdowns in 4 straight weeks there as well. So Drake May, I think the number was 203 and a half for his passing yards. Let me double check that here. It's actually at 198 and a half, so even better. I think this is going to be a good week here for him against his Jacksonville Jaguars pass defense. So those were the 3 I was looking at there. Chris, if you have any thoughts on those.
Yeah, they make a ton of sense. I like all 3 of them. You know, my question for you, my follow-up question though, is going back to his rushing yards again. I know it was a winner for you last week.
So I think it was like either Tuesday or Wednesday where I saw a note that said they were doing an MRI on his knee and it came back clean. So obviously him playing this game, maybe they don't force him or he runs the football as much because of that knee issue, quote unquote. But I couldn't talk you off of it if you wanted to go back to it. I think the number has now been bumped up to 28 and a half, if I'm not mistaken, his last time. Yeah, now it's down to 25 and a half. So maybe folks are catching on there. Trevor Lawrence, 11 and a half over on his rushing yards. I don't hate that one either, Chris, but those were the ones I was kind of looking at. We want to go the revenge angle. Saquon Barkley rushing and receiving over 100 and a half. I mean, the first game back at MetLife. Look,
I was saving them, for anytime touchdown.
Yeah, so maybe at least a yardage perspective for him, he could probably get there. But yeah, that's it. You got anything else for honorable mentions?
No. We'll leave it there. I think we did a pretty good job of covering it all.
All right, let's get to our touchdown scores here, Chris. Kind of tipped the hand there for you, but go ahead and lead us off.
Yeah, for sure. So we can go right back there. Saquon to score twice, just because this, twice is nice for Saquon back at MetLife Stadium. Plus 350 over on DraftKings for him to get 2. You don't want to pay the minus 160 for him to get 1.
Yeah.
I do think that he could potentially find 2. I think you either take him to get 2, or I wouldn't bet both of these. You take him to get 2, or you bet AJ Brown to get 1 at plus 130. Like I said, I like him to, his longest reception. That longest reception may end up, turn into a touchdown. Probably super hungry, after missing those, so many games as well at the beginning of the season. So a couple different, just for that one specific NFC matchup there. Be remiss without mentioning Brian Robinson Jr. here, versus the Carolina defense. I know he's fresh off an injury, but he's minus 135, and that's for a reason. This Carolina defense, boy, it's a lot to be desired. Let's just put it like that. But Bijan had 2 last week. Tyler Algier also got in. Last week it was Roshan Johnson who got 2. DeAndre Swift got 1. Chase Brown got 2 the week before. I mean, you need a running back. You need a touchdown from a running back. Just go visit Carolina. You get 1, and you get 1, and you get 1, and you in the back, you get 1 too. So yeah, I'd be remiss without mentioning Brian Robinson Jr. And then I think on the other side of the ball, going back to that first game I just mentioned, getting Malik Neighbors at plus 140. This is not the greatest secondary for the Eagles, and I think Neighbors being back. I know he has been out with the concussion. He's been limited in practice the last few days. I do expect him to play, and I think that emerging chemistry that he has with Daniel Jones and the target share that he has, specifically in the red zone. We've already seen multiple touchdown games from this rookie. So I like Malik Neighbors if I can get him at plus 140 as well. I'll leave it there. Brian Robinson Jr., Saquon for 2, or AJ for 1 at plus 130, and Malik Neighbors plus 140. I also thought I'll leave it there, but I was also about to throw in Jaden Daniels just because he can also get out of the pocket and potentially get 1 in against that Carolina defense also. So I know he hasn't had a rushing touchdown in the past few weeks. I think it's been maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So wouldn't scare surprise me at all if he was able to find pay dirt here. What about yourself? What you like?
Yeah, I don't. If this guy scores a touchdown this week, we probably don't see this price again. Devontae Adams plus 155. Look, it's just going to be muscle memory between him and Aaron Rodgers, right? In there, I know it's the first game. Maybe there will be a little bit of kinks, but I think that if he's able, when we get down to the end zone or maybe inside the red zone, within that, 15, 10, 5-yard line, those guys are going to, they share one brain because they've done it for so long together. So Devontae Adams, I'll throw out there plus 155. George Kittle, he's been good to us. I'll go right back to him. He scored a touchdown, I believe, now in 4 straight games. 4 straight games now he scored a touchdown. So he's still hovering around plus 135 for the San Francisco 49ers there. Let's see here. I'll double down on Jordan Addison. I think that he can get one over the top of this Lions defense. I feel like a lot of that attention, like we talked about, will be on Justin Jefferson in this game for the Lions defense. I think that opens up the opportunities for him, for Jordan Addison. That number sitting at plus 150. And I think one more, Demario Douglas, Chris, for the New England Patriots. I think that him and Drake May going forward this season are going to have that chemistry going forward. His number's at plus 320. He got his first touchdown last week of his career with Drake May under the under center there for the Patriots. So I think there's enough opportunity there that, again, if those two guys keep having that connection, I think that there's a possibility that he can get another touchdown here, or let's just say a second touchdown here early in that game in London. So I'll leave it at that for my touchdown scores for this week. All right, Chris, let's close it out strong here. Let's get into our best bets for NFL Week 7 for our player props. Where are you taking us?
We're going right back to Minnesota, and who is Minnesota playing against? They're playing against the Lions. Yeah, I'm thinking of both teams at the same time. We're going back to David Montgomery here. Under 51.5 rushing yards, going up against the second best defense. Not going to give out all the numbers again, but David Montgomery splitting that backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs. If Jahmyr Gibbs has a hot hand, David Montgomery probably stays under. if Minnesota's playing the rush defense that we've seen them play, then both of these guys stay under. But I'll go, that this game becomes one-dimensional for the Detroit Lions, and David Montgomery stays under his 51.5 rushing yards here, So best bet, lock it in, David Montgomery under 51.5 rushing yards.
Love it. All right, for my best bet, I will go with I really like Addison this week. I'll go with Tony Pollard because I know that he's going to get most of the snap counts there for the Tennessee Titans. And we talked about the numbers that the Tennessee Titans have given up to the running back position through the air. The number's 23.5 for Tony Pollard to go over on his receiving yards. And those receiving yard props for those running backs have been really good to me this season. So I'll continue, finding those and giving those out as prop bets here from a week in a week out basis. But I think this is a good opportunity here for Tony Pollard to have a good week here. Bills on a short week, coming off a division game on Monday Night Football against the Jets. The defense has been good for the Titans, but the Bills defense against the running back position has not been very good. And we'll continue taking advantage of that here. So Tony Pollard over 23.5 receiving yards as my best bet. All right, that will wrap it up here for this edition of the Propcast. NFL Week 7 in the books. Chris, anything else you want to mention, my man, before we go our separate ways?
No, just enjoy the games. We would love if you guys would leave us a review. And just enjoy the games, bet responsibly. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Yeah, we'll be back next week, either for the NFL or the NBA. So again, now it's going to be busy times here on the Propcast, like I've mentioned. So if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel for the Propcast, make sure you go ahead and do that. And then also wherever you do get your audio version as well for the Propcast, whether it's on Spotify, whether it's on Apple, whatever the case might be. Make sure to follow Chris on the Twitter machine at ChrisBeCappinn with 2 P's and 2 N's. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. And like Chris mentioned, bet responsibly. Enjoy the games this week. And then again, we'll be back next week. Should be a lot of fun talking both NFL and NBA. All right. Good luck with your bets this weekend. And always remember to let it ride.